Hello, my name is Clash Draws, and let's talk about Oneiro and Dominion. If you couldn't tell, I'm a bit sick, but that won't stop me from talking about my OCs. Before we start anything, I want to go over Dominion's design. Dominion was the last gesture that I designed because Dominion didn't exist in the start of Fight for the End's development. I designed Dominion to be this ethereal being with a lot going on in their design. Their design was particularly based off of biblically accurate angels and Rebecca Sugar's fusion designs in Steven Universe. When I was first designing Dominion, I was stuck trying to figure out what color they would primarily be. I couldn't do purple, green, or yellow, or blue because those are the colors the other gestures were. I eventually ended up settling on white because I associate the color white with angels and the concept of heaven. And on the topic of Steven Universe, I decided to do what Rebecca Sugar does when designing her fusions, which would be adding different character motifs into one design. Like, for example, the design of Rainbow Quartz. For this design, they took influence of Pearl's outfit at the time, as well as Rose's hair, as well as many different elements of both characters. I decided to do that too in Dominion's design. Like, for example, Dominion's outfit. Dominion's outfit looks like if you sewed every Jester's outfit into one design. Something I also did with Dominion is I gave them a lot of teeth because I always kind of find teeth a little unsettling. There's something about them. It icks me out. I gotta be honest, I think Dominion is my least favorite character to draw of mine. I think it's because of how busy the design is, which is partially my fault, but I wanted the design of the character to be busy in the first place, so it fits. I don't plan on redesigning Dominion because their design doesn't bother me too much, and they don't appear that much in the story because they're just a character here for lore reasons. So to me, it doesn't matter too much. Not every design is going to be my favorite. With that being said, let's transition into the lore part of Dominion's character. Before life, there was a great white figure. The being never called itself by any name. Those who were unfortunate enough to know who gave them life beyond their mothers or fathers know it as Dominion. Dominion is God. Dominion gave everyone life. But it was never to give life out of goodwill or as a gift. Dominion gave life to share the burden that they so adorned. Dominion saw life as a punishment to experience, but in an interesting turn of events, Dominion found out that the creatures they made, who are much lesser than them, found life to be joyous. They saw life as a blessing, something to enjoy, which made Dominion in turn furious. Dominion, in fits of rage, destroyed those worlds with one large strike. Dominion despised that these creatures, lesser than them in every single way, could experience bliss without consequence. They soon found themselves in a cycle of creating worlds and destroying them whenever they saw something wrong, the cycle making them even more miserable than before. This cycle made them realize something. They came to realize why they were so miserable. It was due to how lonely they were. They had spent every living moment in their void alone, in solitude. That is when Dominion decided they didn't want to be Dominion anymore. So, in a sudden act of violence or self-destruction, Dominion grabbed the sides of their head and proceeded to rip themselves in half, creating two ethereal creatures, Trix and Sparrow. Now, these characters are likely the most important characters in Fight for the End out of the entire cast. These two will likely end up having their own videos dedicated to them. But for the sake of context for this video, I will be introducing them briefly. Sparrow is Dominion's sense of mercy, or whatever kindness they had buried deep down. They're an absolute people pleaser at heart. If others are happy, they're happy. As Dominion split, Sparrow was the first to form, possessing the strongest essence of Dominion's power, the ability to create life from nothing. It's Sparrow's role to fulfill the promise to the people of Oneiro, granting the wish as the Ophelion's grand prize. But in truth, that's just barely touching the iceberg of Sparrow's responsibilities. But that's not for this video. Moving on to Trix. Trix inherited all of Dominion's cruelty. Trix, like Sparrow, also inherited Dominion's powers. The difference from the two being that Trix was not hard-coded with the knowledge of how to use these powers, while Sparrow, from birth, had the knowledge to do anything that Dominion could. Trix is Oneiro's fearless leader. They are kind, compassionate, and could barely hurt a fly. Well, that's a lie, but on the surface they hope that you think that, because that means the propaganda is working. Trix is actually incredibly manipulative and will say or do anything to get what they want. Oh, also to add, they smoke quite a lot. If they weren't an immortal little jester god, I think they would genuinely die of lung cancer. Especially with all the Cuban cigars they huff down daily. Getting back on track from where we left off, Dominion is dead and Trix and Sparrow have just been born. They spend what feels like eternity inside of Dominion's void, only being entertained by the worlds around them that Dominion left behind. Sparrow found these worlds delightful. They loved watching these people live from the perspective of an outsider, while Trix saw it as dreadfully boring. The only things that entertained Trix were when the creatures in those worlds went to war and fought each other. Trix came to realize that conflict and carnage was the thing they loved most. In contrast, Sparrow didn't like it one bit. Seeing creatures, innocent or not, bleed made their heart hurt so much that it brought him the tears. That's when Trix got an idea. A wonderful idea. Trix looked at Sparrow and asked them, "What if we had our own world?" Sparrow was quiet, unsure of how to respond to that question. Sparrow then spoke. "Trix, what does that mean?" Trix then pitched the idea of Oneiro in the battle for the Ovelion. Oneiro would be a utopia where people who wouldn't be missed from their own worlds would inhabit. These people from those worlds, also known as fighters, would compete against each other in a ruthless fighting competition for a prize of whatever the two see fit. Sparrow felt bliss whenever they thought about it. They would get the opportunity to experience what it would be like to be on the worlds that they spent eons watching. How fun! And Trix felt incomprehensible joy from imagining those beings fighting for their own entertainment. So they settled on it. They decided to make Oneiro a reality. So, how did they make Oneiro? Well, something about the Jesters is they can do some Steven Universe type shit and become Dominion again. But the two personalities of Trix and Sparrow are intact. The Dominion at the start of this video cannot be revived due to the existence of Trix and Sparrow. So the two occupy the body, but the original Dominion doesn't exist anymore. Much like fusing in Steven Universe, there are a couple conditions in which the Jesters have to follow to become Dominion again. Every Jester involved would have to be at full power, and would have to be in full state of mind. The reason why is because being in Dominion's body is an extremely draining ordeal. Especially for Sparrow, since Sparrow is the Jester that contains the most magic, which fuels Dominion. But that isn't for this video. Once the two made Oneiro, they separated from Dominion, but things went wrong. Two new Jesters came into existence. The Advocate and Blue Jay. You'll learn about them more in their own videos. They're like Trix and Sparrow, but with less magic. Also happening around this time, a man with a star-shaped head crashed into Oneiro's plane, on complete accident. This is Stevie, he's a fan favorite, people like him a lot. With that being said, this has been the death of Dominion and the birth of Oneiro. Please make sure to keep up with my community posts as I will likely be more active on there. Goodbye.